Les Parry admits he now fears the sack after defeat to survival rivals Chesterfield. The Sparrites were chasing their first win in 8 matches. Ian Goodison's last-ditch block denying Jack Lester. Tranmere's run makes for dismal reading. It's now just 1 win in 18 games. The latest nail in the coffin hammered in by Jordan Bowery. A win that lifts Chesterfield off the bottom and possibly leaves Parry out of work.
News. Meanwhile, Sky sources have also learned today that Les Parry has been sacked as manager of Tranmere Rovers. Parry was the physio before taking over as caretaker manager at Prenton Park in 2009 after John Barnes was sacked, and he was then made manager on a permanent basis. Well, Tranmere have not won this year, 11 matches without a win. Parry's last match in charge was Saturday's 1-0 defeat at fellow strugglers Chesterfield. He was promoted to manager after being physio in October 2009, and here's his record. 131 matches he took charge of, 40 victories, 34 draws and 57 defeats. That gave him a win percentage of 31. And here's the picture at the bottom of League One. This is why Tranmere have a dispense of his services. They're 19th and only 1 point above the relegation zone after a run of 11 matches without a win, stretching back to the turn of this year.
Now, Ronnie Moore has been given the task of keeping Tranmere in League One after returning to the club as manager until the end of the season following the sacking of Les Parry. Moore was Tranmere manager from 2006 but was sacked in 2009 for failing to lead them to promotion from League One. John Barnes then had a brief spell in charge before Parry was promoted from the position of physio to manager.
Well, that was Saturday. By Sunday, Tranmere fans had their wish. Tonight, we'll hear from Les Parry's replacement. Welcome to Late Kick-Off. Coming up on Late Kick-Off tonight, the anatomy of a sacking. We're there for the end of one era at Tranmere and the start of the next.
What we've got to try and do is get back to playing some football and get rid of that fear factor.
Tonight, though, Les Parry's reign as Tranmere boss is over. The former physio replaced today by a former Rovers boss, Ronnie Moore. The axe fell after Saturday's trip to Chesterfield, a journey also made by our reporter, Sarah Mulkerrans.
On Saturday, the manager and team arriving as one. They knew full well the pressure was on. Facing bottom of the league Chesterfield, only a win would do. I spoke to Les Parry before the game and asked was he feeling the heat.
No, certainly the chairman's put me under no pressure, the players haven't, the staff haven't. OK, some of the fans have voiced their concern a little bit, but it's a small minority of those, and I fully respect that. But I don't feel pressure from that. Any pressure I feel is self-imposed.
On the ground, there were 2 distinct sets of fans, the Parrys in and the Parrys out.
Noel, you want Les Parry to stay. Tell us why.
He is very capable as a motivator. He has a very small budget to play with. And although technically he might not be what we want, he has a team behind him.
Matthew, you want Les Parry to go. Tell us why.
Yeah, well, 1 win in 19. It's as simple as that, to be honest with you. Lee Clark, Gary Megson getting sacked for less than that with the teams up at the top of the league.
With the fans divided on Parry's future, I asked him just how stable he felt his job was.
You'd have to ask the chairman that, because it's only him that makes that decision on whether, you know, he's had enough and I've got to go, because at the end of the day that's what we're talking about, is me losing my job. I'm certainly not going to walk away from it, you know, because I've got belief in what we're doing and belief in the direction that we're going. And you know, it might be tomorrow that he phones me up and it's over. It might be in a year's time. Whenever it is, you know, I'll walk away and I'll know I've done as good as I can.
Let's not forget the team. It was also up to them to do as best as they could on Saturday.
This is the Tranmere Rovers players' home for the day. This is what they see, this is what they feel, this is what they experience, all before they hit the pitch at 3 o'clock today.
But we're with the fans here in the away end to see what they feel and experience during the game.
But there wasn't much to experience in the first half. Some attempts up front and some scrambling saves at the back. A group of fans began the chants for Parry out, but they were soon drowned out by what seemed the majority. As the second half wore on, you could feel the frustration growing. There was no sign of a breakthrough for Rovers, and then Chesterfield scored. The chants grew louder.
We want Barry Elstone, we want Barry Elstone. I think the general feeling is there's a mix of some people that really want him out, some people that are kind of, you know, he's a Tranmere man through and through, they'll stick with him. I don't think there's really anyone that thinks he's doing a great job at the moment.
Well, they're not happy, are they, where the club is at the minute, but he's come from where he is. I mean, he's come from being a physio to the manager, so he's not doing too bad, but it's not good enough for these guys. So.
It's 1 win in 20 by the look of it. It's not good enough, simply not good enough at all.
The chants continued and the scoreline remained. A big loss for Tranmere Rovers. Les Parry left to face the music with a hint of foresight of what was ahead.
Now, whether the chairman will give me enough time to get that first win, only time will tell. You know, by the time that this goes out on Monday night, I might be in Spain, and you know, and somebody else will be sitting there, and you'll be talking to somebody else. If that's the case, that's the case. There's nothing I can do about that. That's up to the chairman.
And as things turned out, this was Les Parry's last game in charge.
Well, new man Ronnie Moore took training today and spoke to our Ian Haslam.
It's nice to come back to the club. It's just a shame, you know, the position that we find ourselves in at the moment. But, you know, if we weren't in this position, I wouldn't be here. So it's great to be back, and I can't wait to get going.
So just tell me how this all came about. How did Tranmere Rovers approach you, and when did they approach you in terms of taking the manager's job?
Well, it was basically a phone call. You know, I'd heard, unfortunately, that Les had lost his job on Saturday. And I made a phone call to the chairman, and we had discussions, and you know, luckily for me, we've had a good chat, and the outcome of it was that I'm coming back as manager.
So obviously the club's not in a fantastic position in terms of where it is in League One at the moment. How do you intend to turn that around?
Well, it's definitely a threat. There's no doubt about that. You know, and that's why the chairman's asked me to come in. You know, we've been in these situations before at other clubs, and I've managed to survive. And basically that's what we've got to do. We've got to get to that 50-point mark as quick as we can, and then hopefully kick on from there.
So what has Peter Johnson said to you about your long-term prospects of staying here beyond this season?
He's just asked me to keep us up. You know, if I keep us up, then obviously it's going to be the end of the season. We'll see what happens. But I'm sure if we keep them up, then, you know, I'd certainly like to make it into a long-term one.
The end of one era, the beginning of another. David, you've seen Tranmere recently. Did they look like a team that was struggling, 1 win in 20?
They did. They were struggling confidence-wise. You could see that. Not many attempts on goal. You know, they were huffed and puffed throughout the game. I saw them the week previous against Oldham in a similar sort of pattern of play again. And they've got themselves in the relegation fight.
Well, you said that. Let's have a quick look at the table now. We'll see exactly how bad it is. Do you think Ronnie Moore can turn this around?
Well, he can. He obviously knows the club well. He's been there, you know, a couple of times before. But they need to start scoring goals. And,
okay. Matt, one of the significant things in that film was the fans calling for Les's head. Can they sway a board? You're behind the scenes at Blackpool. Can fans do that?
I think if you've got a strong board, they don't. They're fully focused on the business. I think changing your manager doesn't necessarily guarantee a change of results. You only have to look at Preston. They changed their manager, and David unfortunately lost his job, and the results haven't improved. Yeah. So it's a big call to make, and I feel for Les.
Yeah, we all do. Thank you very much for that. More from the boys in a second. Well, it was a day of comebacks for a couple of hours.
Tranmere scored a stoppage-time equaliser at home to Notts County. It was Ronnie Moore's first game back in charge of the club, and there was a warm welcome for him. But it looked like it would be an unhappy start for him when Notts County took the lead. John Harley's corner was turned in by Damien Stewart. Now, County were going for a 5th straight win under Keith Curle, but they had to settle for a draw when John Welsh scored a late equaliser.
Tranmere Rovers' new manager, Ronnie Moore, watched his side ride their luck against Leyton Orient. Matthew Spring's curling free kick hit the post. But it was a Rovers veteran, Andy Robinson, who broke the deadlock. Orient keeper Paul Rahubka couldn't clear the corner, and Robinson was on hand to profit. Now, Rovers hadn't won in 2012, and that first victory was assured before the break. Enoch Shawumney completed the club's first league double of the season, Danny Holmes delivering the chance for Shawumney, who finished neatly. So Tranmere back on track as Ronnie's Revival's up and running with 4 points out of a possible 6.
The win was what we wanted, but we should have kept the ball a little bit better second half. But overall, I mean, I can't fault commitment, and everything's been fantastic since I've been in.
Yeah, well done to Ronnie Moore in getting his first win back at Tranmere in his third spell in charge. You couldn't find a better qualified man in charge of that football club, could you?
No, you couldn't. But firstly, well done, Les Parry. I thought he did a decent job there, keeping them in that division. But yeah, Ronnie Moore, ex-player, ex-coach, ex-manager, he knows the club inside out. I'm sure he's delighted to be back there. And they started off with a when he was saying in midweek, they haven't got enough goals in the team, and certainly from wide there's not enough creativity. But Andy Robinson, who's is a man who comes up with goals, but usually with his right foot scores with his left foot here. And Shawumney, one of his strikers, comes up with a second goal and a clean sheet. So Ronnie would be delighted with that, but he knows it's a tough one for Tranmere because they don't score enough goals, and it's a good start, but that is all it is.
Keith.
Tranmere came from behind to beat Preston 2-1. Andy Robinson's second half winner earned them all 3 points and left Preston without a win in 5. And the scene.
It's been a fairy tale start to Ronnie Moore's third stint as Tranmere boss, but he could hardly have picked a more testing trip for his first game on the road. Chet Evans giving promotion chasing Sheffield United the lead. The striker's 26th goal of the season had the Blades in front by half-time, but this was far from a one-sided contest. 9 minutes after the break, Lucas Akins arrived unmarked to meet John Welsh's corner. The second time in a week that the Blades have squandered the lead, and Tranmere continued to ask questions. Stoke loanee Ryan Brunt got clear of United's back four, leaving Steve Simonson as their last line of defence. In the end, the keeper did just enough, but the Blades are looking over their shoulders whilst the Ronnie revival continues.
We couldn't force that second goal, which would have given us a little bit of breathing space, quite honestly. We've had enough, of the ball, and we've had enough chances really to do that. But you've got to say how well they defended from Tranmere's point of view.
We played at high tempo to them. I don't know whether they felt Tony Tranmere and whatever, but the tempo that they normally have here wasn't there. But I was pleased. The lads give everything. That's all we ask. And on another day, we could have just nicked it with the chance that Brunty had.
Tranmere continued their resurgence under new manager Ronnie Moore. They beat Rochdale 2-0. James Wallace put Tranmere 1-up. And Jake Cassidy completed the win 8 minutes from time. Rochdale are now 5 points off safety in the bottom 4.
Tranmere's resurgence continues. Not even this shocker from Ryan Brunt could knock Rovers out of their stride. Ronnie Moore's return to Prenton Park has produced 14 points out of a maximum 18. Josh Labadie's superb opener is a measure of Rovers' growing confidence. When Moore took over, Tranmere and Exeter were both on 34 points. The two sides have headed in opposite directions since then. Jake Cassidy's second goal in 4 days confirmed 5 defeats in a row for the Grecians, who are now 6 points short of safety.
Friends reunited at Gig Lane as Richie Barker locked horns with Ronnie Moore. The young Bury boss had the upper hand on the man who he once played for when Effie Sodji headed the Shakers into the lead against Tranmere. That goal broke the deadlock midway through the second half, and just 5 minutes later, some terrific hold-up play from Andy Bishop opened the door for Giles Coke. The Sheffield Wednesday loanee keeping his cool to put Bury on track for their first win in 14 matches. That strike put a stop to Tranmere's 6-match unbeaten run, and Bury's margin of victory would have been greater, but for Ash Taylor's goal line block that prevented Bishop from adding his name to the score sheet. But Bury are now 5 points clear of danger.